Welcome to Extracurricular. I'm your co-host, Eddie Geller.
And I'm your other co-host, Stephanie Vanos. I am a school board member in Orange County, Florida, but I am here today unofficially, as I am always.
That's beautiful. Steph, what a couple of dynamic guests we had this week. I love it. We don't often do the two guest situation, but we did it this week, and we got double our money because they were fantastic. Do you want to talk about who we had this week?
Oh, I loved our conversation. We had Xander and Colson, and Xander was one of the founders of, maybe the founder of Sea Alliance, and Colson is one of the he's the Orlando area organizer. So we kind of talked to them a little bit about what Sea Alliance is. It's truly an amazing oh my God, I can't even talk.
You're good.
So they shared a little bit about what Sea Alliance is and just the great work it is doing with our students and our youth. And it was so impressive to hear their stories, hear their takes, their thoughtfulness, their persistence, their dedication, their knowledge. I was just blown away.
Well, I said this to you after we finished recording, that some of our best guests are under 25 years old, and that remains nearly undefeated. We've had some very good guests who are older, but like the young folks just keep like eating it up, if I can say that.
I mean, we all have so much to learn from them. I'll just say that. I truly believe that.
That's true. I mean, someday when I get old, I'm going to be so embarrassed to be over 30.
Kind of like when you were trying to take the selfie when they were leaving.
We have to cut that out. We're kind of not out of the plan.
No cuts.
No, I did take a very poor selfie at the end, which was very embarrassing. But they were very sweet. They were fantastic guests. One of the most interesting and powerful parts of the interview was actually Xander talking about his first time going viral and what that was like, and how the power of Xander being able to get attention on social media, because Xander has 100,000 followers. Steph, I don't know how many followers you have. I don't have
not 100,000.
Not 100,000. I thought that was really powerful and really interesting, and how it actually it makes sense when you see the work that that Sea Alliance is doing which calls itself youth led. Makes sense about how they are engaging both to the outside world through their social media, but also the people who come in and the kind of work they do. So I thought it was incredibly forward thinking work and passionate and thoughtful. And I thought the two of them were both just fantastic guests.
Yep. Very excited to share this conversation.
Speaking of exciting, I hope you are excited to be listening to this podcast, both you, Stephanie, and also you, the listener, and do hope that you subscribe to this podcast, rate us. Steph, what can they rate us?
5 stars only. 5
stars only. And follow us on Instagram, extracurricular_podcast. Hopefully I got that one right. I know sometimes I say it backwards, but I think that was correct. So yeah, please do follow us, engage with us. We're trying to get to 100,000 followers by the end of 2030. Okay. Your past week, well, even just this weekend, you were at Leadership Blue, where a lot of Democrats come down. It's like a convention sort of thingy event. I don't know. Is that a good, decent way of describing it, I guess?
A bunch of people come together at some convention for some thingy and events. Yeah, I think that's actually perfect.
I've been to a couple of them. I didn't go to this one.
No, I think I went down primarily to see people that I like and people that I enjoy being around, and people were gathered in one place. And so that is the reason that I went there, and was able to catch up with some great friends and was able to just have some great conversations. Was there for just a bit and came home, and it was fun.
Did you see anyone that you liked?
I did see some people that I liked. I saw many people that I liked. Actually, when I did not have a ticket for the gala, so I was walking out around 5:30 or so and ran into Representative Angie Nixon.
Representative Angie Nixon, Senate candidate and former guest of the podcast.
That is true. And so it was great. Actually, she was on her way in. I was on my way out, but we sat down, I was on a bench, and we're just kind of chatting and venting, and, just kind of felt good to catch up with her. So it was a great conversation, a great way to end the day.
I love hearing that. She's so wonderful. We got that primary coming up in August 18th, and folks, and early voting and vote by mail before that. Hopefully you are getting your vote by mail or are already registered, and we'll definitely vote by August 18th. And people should do their due diligence on who they're voting for. That's all my disclaimer language that I want to put in there. But we loved having her on the podcast. And I think she's an important voice, and I think it's an important primary, and hopefully people are paying attention. So you can go back and listen to that pod if you want to listen to Angie Nixon.
Perfect.
Do we even have to do another podcast? I feel like we nailed it.
Are we done? I don't know, but
I was going to say, so I didn't actually join you at Leadership Blue. I was going to be there. I ended up being down for the count. I was just not feeling well yesterday. But now that this is being recorded and we're on mic, do you think I was just trying to get out of it?
If you were, I wouldn't blame you. Was that wrong? Should I not say that? No, I mean, it's like I said, I went down to see people, and sometimes, you're just not in the mood and you need a little catch up, and weekends are important to rest and recharge. So.
I was feeling very not great, I will be honest.
But you were feeling better today because we went on about a 3-hour journey.
A journey?
At Waterford Lakes.
Would you call it an odyssey?
I might call it an odyssey.
What did you think? So we saw the Odyssey, which I actually talked about briefly during the interview. What did you think of the Odyssey?
I liked it. I remember reading it in high school, and I really did not like it. I actually remember I was behind, and it was like due on Monday, and I think it was at the end of spring break or something. And so I actually remember leaving it on a United Airlines flight, but I had just finished it, and I honestly wasn't that upset about leaving it there because I just didn't really like the story. But I'd heard there's so much hype about the movie, and you really wanted to see it. And so I thought, okay, I'll go see it. It'll be good. And I enjoyed it. It was good. I will say gods are vengeful.
Yeah, gods, they get angry.
They do.
If you cross them, they're not happy.
They're big mad.
I really enjoyed it. Christopher Nolan is not always I'm not necessarily a super fan of all of his films, but I think he is just an incredibly talented filmmaker who does things that almost no one else in the industry can do. So I was really in amazement at a lot of this film, even though I didn't think it was a perfect film necessarily. But I do think the story of the Odyssey is a really, I think, powerful and profound one. I found it to be when we got to the end. So that Homer guy, he knew what he was doing.
He knew a thing or two.
He knew a thing or two.
It kind of makes me actually want to go back and read it because I might have more patience for it now, like having seen the movie maybe, or maybe just being older and not having to read it for a class. I don't know what.
Should we start a book club?
Hey, if we can find time to do that, I say let's do it. Actually, I would love to start a book club.
Okay, I'm in.
Okay.
Which so we're starting with the Odyssey?
Well, if you all have thoughts on what book we should start with, let us know.
Send us an email, podcast@extracurricular@gmail.com, or send us a DM on extracurricular_podcast. Okay, finally, before we get to the interview, you actually, because I'm always keeping you honest, right? You are an elected official, even though you are here unofficially. But you do have a work session. Actually, let's just remind folks, what's a work session versus a board meeting? I just like to always remind folks of how the basics work.
So the Orange County School Board has a board meeting once a month. And at the board meeting, that is the only time where we vote on any issue. And that's also the time where public can comment. As always, it's 4 p.m. public comment, and the business meeting begins at 5. Work sessions, we usually have work sessions most of the other Tuesdays of the month, and sometimes actually on school board meeting days. But that's where we have an issue we might talk about. We move by consensus. We sort of look at policies, rewrite policies, look at legislation, determine how that's going to impact, or just talk about sort of issues like that. But they're not voted on. So we have had a couple of work sessions in the last couple of weeks. The upcoming one, we will be once again talking about micro-mobility devices, e-scooters and e-bikes, and which we talked a little bit about on the last pod. And then also our AI policy, which this is probably I think the 4th time that we've met about it. But I know that people just kind of want to have that in place before school starts in less than a month.
That's wild. Yeah. Why not just get ChatGPT to write you a AI policy? It's very circular.
I feel like it might be very biased. I don't know. I don't think I like that.
Well, I think folks should pay attention. I will say personally, and I've said this on the podcast before, I think AI should be as far away from young students and young minds as possible. I think it is incredibly pernicious, but you know what? We have a democracy, and it's going to be discussed, and folks will share their opinions, and a policy will come out. And I'm just one man. Well,
I will say, if I have people out there and they have strong opinions, let me know.
Yeah. Come on to the podcast. Okay. Without any further ado, let's get to the real heroes who've come to this podcast, who have journeyed to this podcast.
Taking an odyssey.
Taking an odyssey. Let's go to our interview with Xander and Colson.
Welcome to the podcast. Today we have two wonderful guests. I can't wait to get into this conversation. Xander and Colson. Hi, welcome.
Thank you for having us. We're so excited.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. Do you mind each of you just introducing yourself, saying your name, and letting folks know, what you're up to?
Yeah, my name's Colson Fry. I'm the Orange County Organizing Coordinator for Sea Alliance. So I'm hanging up here. I'm currently enrolled as a UCF student as a senior, so focusing on my education while also focusing on education.
I love it.
Hello.
Double.
And my name is Xander Moritz. I'm the founding executive director at Sea Alliance, which is the Social Equity Through Education Alliance. We're a youth-led, multi-generational movement building lifelong civic participation and power through school board organizing.
Wow, that is, I feel like you've done this before.
Just once or twice.
Once or twice.
No, you have to get that elevator pitch down, the sentence down, I think, especially when we're talking about school board organizing and many people are unfamiliar with what that even means or looks like. You just need it to be as simple as possible.
Has anyone in this room made a pitch on an elevator at any point in their lives?
Okay, yes.
You have?
Literally,
Yeah.
yes. Okay,
Okay.
the Tallahassee elevator, state rep, I won't name who, they were not thrilled with how our young people show up and often provide fiery testimonies, but always grounded, always
Yeah.
respectful. And so I was speaking with this rep about the fact that maybe they should come tap into the fellowship program and speak to our young people. And they were not receptive in the moment, but they followed up and ended up joining a Zoom call, speaking to 30 of our fellows. And now every time we go to Tallahassee, we're able to come into their office, have conversations. And so that was my elevator pitch, quite literally.
That's awesome.
I love it, especially Tallahassee. Like you have that little moment where people are not distracted and, walking down the halls. So that's so smart. I love it.
Definitely, when you're in one of the right 50 elevators that they have, you can maybe find a rep.
And you're like hoping you're in the right one and you're hoping you know where to go when you get off. I love it. Yeah. Okay, so you've mentioned Sea Alliance, you did your elevator pitch. Can you just talk a little bit more about exactly what it is and how it came to be?
Absolutely. So I founded Sea Alliance as a club at my high school, and it was never meant to become an organization, a nonprofit, I didn't have the language for it. I just knew that things were wrong at my school, and I had lots of questions, lots of curiosities that turned into a restless fight. And so me and a group of 12 wonderful students at Pine View High School down in Osprey, Florida, worked to set up this club. Within 2 weeks, we were the largest club on our campus.
Wow.
Everyone wanted to have these conversations, but there wasn't a space to do it. 2 weeks after that, we were then kicked off of campus because our school board member, Bridget Ziegler, who is a co-founder for Moms for Liberty, alongside a group of parents throughout the community, got really upset about the types of conversations we were having and how political discourse was becoming viable and healthy on Pine View's campus. They did not want to see young people having those political conversations. They did not want it to be student-led. And so we had to disband. Then a month after that, COVID-19 came. And so I'm sitting here with my friends and I'm like, okay, every single thing that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. Every single obstacle that could have been presented to us has been presented to us. Maybe this just isn't meant to be. And even as I said that, I didn't believe it. I couldn't feel it. I was like, I know this is right. Like there's the energy, there's the appetite. And I still felt something in my body about how young people needed their own space because we had tried to get involved with other organizations and we had tried to get involved in party infrastructure. And I think especially with this incoming generation of young people, we want to be spoken with and we want to build with. We don't want to be spoken to or told what to build. And there isn't really space for that. And so we needed to build our own. And when COVID came, we saw at first, like I said, a tremendous obstacle, but then an opportunity. COVID had come for everyone. So there were so many incredible organizations, programs, schools that now needed a way to engage and entertain and educate their young people virtually. But no one was prepared for that. No one had a strategy for that. And so we quickly realized that whoever moved most quickly would have the most success. And so we sent emails, calls, presentations to everyone across the state saying that we would come or set up a Zoom and we would be able to entertain the young people for 90 minutes talking about local civics education and school board organizing. And I was really unsure if we were ever going to hear back from anyone because we were not a real organization. We were 12 friends who had an idea and there was no reason for people to respond. But now there was. Now people needed help. They needed to entertain their young people. And so everyone responded. And from 2020 to 2022, we were able to do this really amazing lecture circuit across the entire state of Florida, all 67 districts. And we really quickly grew from a group of 12 friends to hundreds of high school organizers across the state working in this really incredible distributed model. And then in 2022, the Don't Say Gay lawsuit came down, and that really unified the fight. So we did Say Gay walkouts across the state. We did tons of media work. We did tons of community mutual aid work. We did tons of organizing, and there were so many levels to what people were doing, but now it was centered around one narrative, one fight, one idea. And that also helped bring a visual identity to the movement. It helped bring some structure to the movement. It helped put everyone on the same trajectory. And from there, we were able to have so many huge concrete wins that I think people didn't believe could happen in Florida. And so we started to get attention from some national funders and figures and people who had given up on Florida, and suddenly were like, wait, did you see that? Mm-hmm. Wait, they activated 45,000 high schoolers for one direct action. Our Say Gay sticker campaign saw 45,000 high schoolers take a direct action. And that's not sign a petition. That's not like an Instagram post. That's organize a walkout. That's distribute 250 stickers across their graduating class and walk across their graduation stage in protest, showing that while we're leaving public schools, we'll never leave public schools behind. And while we can't say gay, we'll always find a way to say gay. And with those movements, those moments, we were able to grow, and that was what I'd always wanted. And so hilariously, the 2 days after I began my first semester at Harvard College, which was such a crazy experience and such a crazy opportunity, we received an opportunity to open up a community center in Sarasota and hire a full-time staff.
Wow.
And this was a multi-year, long-term grant from an aligned LGBTQ plus run foundation, the JDMCL Foundation, and immediately I knew that's what I needed to do. I had been fighting for years trying to argue that young people not only needed physical space, but had the wherewithal and the skill and the ability to actually run and steward it. But of course, I was 17 years old telling people that I wanted a 10-year lease for a community center, and they're like, yeah, get out of my face. They're like, what is ADA compliance? Like, how do you make sure there's not a fire? Like, we're not doing this with you. But this group trusted, and they were excited. And through that first semester of college, I ended up working with my professors and the faculty, because I was there to study government and education. And I said, hey, I think I need to go do this. And they're like, dude, Harvard's going to be here in 100 years. Honestly, Florida might not be. So you need to get busy. You need to get to work. And that support, that encouragement obviously gave me the confidence I needed to do the ridiculous thing and leave Harvard behind, which was so hard. And explaining to my parents, they were just like, you're actually joking. You're actually joking. And it's been the most amazing and wild experience yet. But that's the trajectory. It was a high school club that became a statewide and now national movement just from continuing to take action. And I think not try and think too much about the container or the branding, and instead just think about the work. And over time, the pattern of effect and real winning has proven itself, and that gets young people excited, which keeps the growth. And now we're here, and I am so excited about what we've become and what we're building and who we're building it with. It's just so sick.
That's such an impressive story. So many things I want to go back to, but I'll just ask Colson. So how did you get involved? Were you involved from the beginning? Did you get involved locally? How did you get involved with the group?
So yeah, I actually didn't get involved until 2025 in Sea Alliance. I started out like with activism through, actually my dad is a county judge. So my first grade was also his election year. So I have pictures of me that young, engaging in politics. But in my high school experience, I moved from, well, in middle school, I didn't understand who I was. I was queer, I was trans. I didn't know how to move through that or understand that. And as a result of it, my grades really suffered. Like, I was going to class and I was calling my mom like 30 minutes later, like, Mom, I'm really, really feeling sick. And I did feel sick. I just didn't understand why, but it was just anxiety, depression, and all of that. So as I moved into my freshman year of high school, I found a group of people through the GSA and just my classes in Cambridge, where I was able to like become more of myself and grow into like who I wanted to be. And I became the president of my school's GSA. But in my time there was also issues with like the bathroom and being transgender. Our only gender neutral bathroom was in the nurses' room. So we all had to travel across campus to get there, and security really didn't like that we were out of class. So they really wanted to put a stop to us coming to the nurses' bathroom, and they eventually tried to just ban it, like overall. And then eventually we found out they actually wanted to create a list of the transgender students in our school to be able to like give them passes to go to the bathroom, but like, come on.
Yeah.
So through like my dad being a judge and a local official, like I was able to work and like talk to the principal and understand how I could get through and stop that, which we were able to do. But throughout my entire time at GSA, we didn't particularly know how to organize. But then came the 2024 elections, and I got involved in canvassing. I was actually activated by now County Commissioner Kelly Sumrad.
Shout out to Kelly.
Shout out to Kelly, UCF professor. And I found Sea Lions actually through Xander's Jubilee video. He did a debate on there, and I discovered Sea Lions, read about it, saw all the actions they had done, actually realized that I had known about them in my freshman year of high school through all their other organizing efforts, and was able to just really come in. And I actually came in only like 3 days before the first round of No Kings protests. So like my first Zoom with Xander that I had, I was given like de-escalation materials and like know your rights training. And so I turned up to the protest with confidence, and I was actually able to get really involved in like local Orange County initiatives and like meet like the Hope Community Center people and the Immigrants Are Welcome Here people, and gain that local action through those tools. So that's kind of how I started as a fellow.
I love that. That's amazing.
That's amazing.
I know we both have follow-up questions, but one thing that you said that, and you somewhat alluded to this, but young folks having their own space, what can it be like when adults are in that space that make it like less free, less comfortable? And again, I know you kind of alluded to it, but I'd love to hear either of you kind of articulate what that can be like.
It's been an art and a science to figure that out, because at first, from 2019 to I'll say 2023, we were entirely youth comprised. So if you were not a young person, you were not organizing with Sea Lions. And what we learned after Walk Out to Learn in April of 2023, Sea Lions organized the largest ever student-led action in Florida's history, with 302 college and high school walkouts all happening on the same day. And at all 302 actions, students were administered a banned Black History course and given resources to continue taking action afterwards. And so we really quickly developed the idea of an immediate tangible benefit. If young people are going to be asked to take an action or do something or engage in a program or join an organization, for them and for whatever they're interested in, a community, an issue, there should be an immediate tangible benefit. And so this walkout supplied that, and it got people really excited, because at the time what we were addressing was the year prior for the Don't Say Gay law. There were tons of walkouts, but obviously the Don't Say Gay law passed. And so there was the greater question from students of, is this action worthwhile? And does it matter? And after we started doing these things, those questions started to become so high level and so interesting that I was not able to actually answer them. I could say something that sounded right or sounded good and made sense, but I didn't actually have the answers. And I knew that this wasn't just a vibes-based decision. There was history, there was sociology, there was psychology, there was a best practice, but we didn't know what it was because we were at the time 19 years old. You know what I mean? And so we started to reach out to a lot of really experienced organizers and older folks who had offered their time, but we didn't see the value in immediately. And that was the biggest and best change, I think, in the Sea Lions strategy and culture that we've had over the course of the movement. In 2023, we officially redefined ourselves as youth-led and multi-generational. And the way that that has changed our capacity is extreme. Because I think, to your question, in a youth-led space that adults are present, what almost always happens is single-sided mentorship. So an adult sees the value they can offer to a young person, and if the young person doesn't see the value as well, it's imposed. And so that can either look like decision-making, it can look like direction providing, it can look like critiquing, editing, ideas being shut down, all of these things. And we see that a lot, unfortunately, in different spaces, and a lot of those young people end up at Sea Lions as a direct result of that treatment. And so we actually do specific trainings with every adult who volunteers with Sea Lions about how they work with and speak to young people. And if an adult can't meet those standards of behavior, they're not allowed to continue organizing with Sea Lions. But that's not an issue we run into even twice a year. Our adults that get involved want to support the energy, want to help be the inflatable bowling alley lanes that make sure we're not gutter balling, but still letting our young people hit the strikes. And that's been the amazing experience. And it makes it such that at C-Space Sarasota, I mean, Colson, you visited many times, it is entirely high school decorated and run, and it feels that way. Like there are signs of cats making biscuits, and there are like be gay, punch Nazis, love your mom, like fairy lights everywhere. Like there's vinyls on the wall. There's always some type of random music playing, and sometimes I'll walk into the living room, it'll be like the most depressing Frank Ocean song in the world. I'm like, hey guys, it's 1 p.m. and the sun is out. Let's act like it. But it really is youth led, and then there are certain times and spaces in which our adults are allowed to be there or allowed to support, but because they do it in such a respectful way and they're aware that they are entering as a supporting force, it's been really supportive. And I found that our young people also are comfortable communicating. Hey, dude, this person keeps over talking me. We need to have 2 separate meetings, one with just the high schoolers, and then you can add the adult community members. And we say, great, we'll make it happen. And I think it's also just listening to our young people. And if we are being truly youth led, allowing that to also mean that we're comfortable making mistakes. We're comfortable trying new things. We're comfortable taking those risks, because obviously the things that we have been used to trying aren't working. So who am I to say, even if I don't see an idea as viable, that it's not worth trying?
I love that.
Gosh, I'm so impressed. I think I first started paying attention, or I guess hearing about what you were all doing probably in about 2022. But it is interesting to hear the years prior, and just to hear about, how you built that infrastructure. And sometimes I think people take, a lot of times people come to Orange County generally, and they'll just say, wow, you have this whole, everyone helps each other, and it's this like great community. But it took, one particular representative, who shall remain nameless, but we all know who she is, really building that infrastructure. And it sounds like you sort of intuitively understood that when you were in high school, that we have to build this infrastructure so that then we have these connections and relationships with people around the state, that then when we're ready to move on an issue, like they're ready to go and they trust us and we trust each other and we're ready to move forward. Am
Absolutely.
I describing it?
You're totally describing it. It feels like 2 distinct eras of Sea Alliance. 2019 to 2022 was relationship building, and it was messy and it was fun, right? Like people in Jacksonville were organizing around climate change, people in Orlando were organizing around reproductive justice, and people in Sarasota were organizing around public education, right? We weren't making deep sustainable impact. We were doing our best, but it was building those relationships. It was creating that network, and that network has survived to this day. There are high schoolers every senior year who will then recommend the juniors at their high school who will take on the next round of fellowship. And then they will then go to their state college and start their college fellowship. The average retention rate is 4 of 5. So 4 of 5 people who organize with us in one program organize with us in the next. And if they're given an opportunity to keep going with us, they do. And it's because of that relationship building, and it's because of that. So you're entirely right about that. And I think especially, and this is something Colson and I talk about a lot, with the election infrastructure of Florida, you can feel that people don't actually believe in the work or believe in the communities. And it's, okay, what is the bare minimum we can give you for this to feel like a real campaign, and then move on? And of course, it means that, for example, 2024, Yes on 4, we have thousands of young people incredibly excited about abortion access or different ideas. And when the campaign is over, those young people are still excited. They still have energy. They still want to do something, but the campaign is gone. The infrastructure is gone. The relationships are gone. The ideas are gone. And suddenly you have thousands of young people who not only don't have something to do, but now have a negative experience. They have a bad taste in their mouth, and they're less likely to come back again. And so something we're also thinking about is we're super involved in voter turnout and in nonpartisan voter education. We don't need to tell you who to vote for. We just want to make sure that you have the information you need to make the right choice for you. But I mean, we see it so clearly as we have to be a year-round 365 organization. We have to be here to catch people after the elections. We have to be here to ask people what they need before the elections. And I think that's something our high schools also feel, and our high schoolers need, is the issues that we're experiencing are not happening just around the election cycle. What's happening in our high schools and what's happening to our families is happening day in and day out. And so we think about the balance as short-term protections. So how can we keep our people safe in the short term, because bad things are happening right now? And then long-term power. How can we also get out of this reactive, responsive cycle where we're always one step behind, and start building a strategy forward that's sustainable and exciting? Because when you're running away from something, the farther you get from it, the slower you go, and the more tired you get, and the movement falls apart. But when you're running towards something, the closer you get to it, the more momentum you build, the faster people go, the more excited people get, and the farther you'll go. And I think that's been a big defining part of it, is just that year-round infrastructure and a place that young people can go without an immediate idea or purpose, but knowing they want community.
And I think that's something that has been lacking in other areas, is that vision of what do we want? Like, we know what we don't want, and we it's kind of like you said, we react against it. But what is it that we're building towards? So, Colson, like, what drew you? Like, what do you feel like? What are you building towards, and how do you hope Sea Alliance can help kind of build that with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, Xander quite literally hit the nail on the head. I was involved in the Yes on 4 campaign and was in there during the election. And then after our losses, I ended up like burning out, not having really any motivation, not knowing where my next steps were to be. And when I first came across Sea Alliance, I saw that a lot of the meetings were virtual. So I was able to attend them and just have them in the background while I was doing something else if I needed to. Also, just education as a whole being so important and having sustainable infrastructure that you build around it. For me, public education is super important just as a principle. My dad always raised me talking about how like the two things nobody could ever take away from you are your integrity and your education. So it was something that really stuck with me moving on throughout my life. So seeing these attacks on public education, what I'm really building towards is like a school system that my sister would have been able to go to after me because she was there for the Don't Say Gay bill, and be able to like have a space where they're able to be themselves like I was able to gain in high school before all the attacks started. So a big part for me is like the future for students, one, but also just making sure that we have something where we're able to organize around and just hang out. Because for me, Sea Alliance hasn't just been like showing up to the next action and organizing. It's been like going up to Tallahassee and having fun there. But also when we're driving the Broward students back, we run into like a horse at the gas station and now we're all hanging around. So I think like what we're also really chasing after is just joy in such a dismissive and unenterable environment as it stands.
And to the question, we view Colson and the Orange County movement as one of the positive flagships. And what we're handling in Sarasota County is horrible day to day. We're not able to ask for a student board member or investment into C squads. What we're begging for is for our marginalized students to not have their protections stripped. What we're begging for is hollow resolutions about ICE not to be promoted so that our students are too scared to go to school. So we are fighting against things all the time in places like Broward, Miami-Dade, Sarasota. And I also want to name a couple of things really quickly. Not saying those board members are bad, the circumstances are. And same with Yes on 4. Those organizers that I know from the Yes on 4 campaign are some of the most thoughtful, intentional, incredible people I have ever met. And I am in no way critiquing how they handled that campaign. It is a reality of the funding and the structure that there was not an opportunity to then open offices and develop infrastructure beyond that. And that's a problem, but it doesn't mean it's a single person or a leader's fault as much as it is a problem situation to be in. But to the Orange County point, like that is supposed to inspire the other districts as well. Because while we're in the trenches begging for basic protections in Sarasota, we're also showing our students, but look at Orange County. They're developing this really cool C Squad program, and they are going to have a student board member. And so, yes, this sucks right now. But once we reset, once we create safety, once we're at baseline, then we have something excited to move towards. And that's what keeps our young people together through the challenge. Because if you're in Miami-Dade right now, it's going to be a moment before we experience a concrete victory. It's going to be a lot of fighting uphill and just trying to minimize losses before we're trying to maximize gains. And I think having places like Orange County and people like Colson to be in the movement and say, hey, also, this is a potential reality that you can experience. This is a win that you're building towards is necessary. And it's also why we bring together all of our local organizings into shared space like our weekly Zoom with Xander, where we allow Orange County organizers and Pinellas organizers and Sarasota organizers to compare what they're doing and learn from one another, which also adds to the joy because it's I don't know, we have the coolest group of high schoolers and college students, but they have fun with one another, and it's just cool to see.
And I love that you said that. And this is something that, I've noticed too, that sometimes you can be in a campaign, whether it's for a candidate, whether it's for an issue, and it can be hard and it can be grueling, and there's never enough money and there's never enough of, X, Y, and Z. But you have to find the joy in it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it just is unsustainable. Like if you're not finding joy in something you are doing, it is not sustainable, and others do not want to be a part of it. And so you have found that. Like it seems like you really found that with young people.
Because why would they join?
Absolutely. I mean, like, even because I am from Broward, one of the Broward baddies, but
the Broward ballers, Broward baddies, come on, my love.
Like, even just being able to go to Broward for like an event that our Broward coordinator was hosting, and like we had an entire event that was just a field day where we went out into a park and we played, and we had like water fights. But during the water fights, it was like either you answer this question about the 19th Amendment correctly, or I'm going to throw a bucket of water on you.
I think it was
they ate it up.
A relay race, a relay run for office, something like that. It was like, I was so impressed with all of the joy that they put together, because then also afterwards, parents were like, great, how can we get our young person volunteering with you? And then the young people afterwards were like, okay, you said the schools are shutting down. What does that mean? And we're able to prompt this moment of getting involved. But when people think about politics, they think about misery, they think about just disgusting, they think about toxicity, they don't want to get involved. And so if we're going to ask for our young people to give us their attention and time, as opposed to giving it to a sport or to playing, give me a video game that's relevant, please. Overwatch, is that
Overwatch is fine.
Thank you. Playing Overwatch is like, that's hard to compete with. Like, you know what? Playing basketball and Overwatch is at face value more fun than calling voters and telling them to turn out for the August 18 elections. But suddenly, if there's a leaderboard for the phone bank and you're competing to host an ice cream sundae party, then it's a different ballgame.
Well, one of the things I used to think about when I first got into doing activism is how boring, in quotes, can be a weapon. That like these, whether it's like committee hearings or how like slow and methodical things work, it can be used against people to have folks want to be involved. Because when it just like grinds you down like that, you're like, I don't want any part of that. Like, I care about the outcome, but I have to sit in a meeting forever and I got to be around people I don't want to be around. Like, it can really be a tool of oppression. So I love bringing the joy of it. And of course, there's that phrase, joy as an act of resistance, I think is like incredibly true.
In our community center above our coffee bar and matcha bar now, we're growing. Nice. We're responding to the moment. There's a big one of my favorite quotes, and it says, if I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. And I think that is so relevant to what we do. Like, even Friday, all of our organizers do a new Music Friday selection, and we pick our favorite song released that week, and we share it out with our community, and we're building a big playlist, and things like that are really important to it, because like what you just described is what we call the bureaucratic bullet, but it will shut everything down. When we're dealing with young people who can go on their phones and literally access anything in any form. So sitting through a 3-hour State Board of Education meeting is incredibly dull and boring. So what we do, for example, is we'll set up 2 of our facilitators on either side of the recording, like ESPN broadcasters, and then they'll annotate the whole thing and link drop actions. And then every once in a while we pause, like, this 20 minutes is boring. We're going to do this explainer in action. And then they'll just skip forward on the live stream. And little choices like that. Like, you don't need to be a technological expert. You don't need to be a comedian to do that. You need 20 minutes in advance and a little bit of thoughtfulness. And moments like that keep our young people engaged, because it is unfair to expect our young people to sit through an entire legislative session. It's confusing. It's boring. It's complicated. It's everything but entertaining for a 15-year-old.
And I would just say even older people too.
I
mean, I have
Thank you.
I have attended PTA or SAC. I'll just say there's SAC meeting in one of my schools a couple of years ago, and I sat in this meeting with all of these really talented, educated, I'll just say middle-aged, because I'm middle-aged, whatever, middle-aged people.
What? This is the first I'm hearing of
and
this.
they spent the entire 90 minutes talking about the bylaws. And I'm like, there's so much more you could be doing with this 90 minutes. Like, you guys could be like taking, and I guess you grasp on that taking action is so important. So I'll leave that there. So I did want to add, did you?
No,
something?
Please.
How did you, was it because you were in a school that kind of made school boards sort of like your focus, or maybe your first focus, or would you even say it's your focus? That's how I kind of associate
it.
It
totally is. I had a really weird public schooling experience. I've been in public school my entire life, and I started off in Manatee County, and I had a lot of really challenging experiences in my public schooling. I would not show up to school some days, and staff wouldn't notice, and it wouldn't be reported, and then my parents would just find out after. There would be incidents with different students, lots of problems. I was a challenging child to maintain, and I remember in my second grade classroom, we had a lot of students whose Spanish was the first language, and our teacher would spend a portion of the day working with those students, and I would use that portion of the day to literally skip class and run away. And my parents were like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. This kid is...
In second grade?
Yeah, this kid is a monster. We love him, but he's a monster. I remember one time I got a 0 on a math test, and my parents were like, how did you get a 0? And the teacher said, he was reading Harry Potter during the math test. And my mom was like, why did you let him read Harry Potter during the math test? And she was like, yeah, he just wasn't taking the math test. And I remember my parents were so involved in asking those questions and noticing those problems. And they decided to move me to Sarasota County. And that was a really shocking transition for me. I went from a really diverse campus to a campus that has a 1% Black population and an incredibly privileged student body. I went from a campus that was book sharing in between classrooms into one that had an active panel in every classroom. And it was a really intense transition point for me. And as that was happening, I then also had Bridget Ziegler, Moms for Liberty co-founder, as my school board member. So on two layers, like the very practical socioeconomic layer, I was experiencing the difference in public education quality. And it was really, I couldn't find the language for it, but I certainly had the emotion to it that this is wrong. I feel guilty. It was survivor's guilt. I didn't know how to explain it, but I was like, I did nothing right to earn this. I was actually a really poorly behaved student. So I didn't get this opportunity because I was the best student at the public school I just left. I got it because my parents could test me into Pineview. It requires an IQ test. That costs money. That requires awareness and agency and a lot of things that a lot of families don't have right now. And I think I couldn't figure out why. So that was the origin for Sea Alliance. And then when I started to ask why, and I was like, oh, great, the school board's going to help me. And I go to the school board and they're actually like, slavery is a good thing. I sit there and I'm like, oh my God, like there are so many problems that we need to be solving. And instead of solving those problems, we are literally talking about nonsense. We are literally lying in a circle and rewriting history and banning books and focusing on these cultural issues that nobody is asking for, nobody is wanting. And that was the origin of Sea Alliance, was me really upset, really confused, and also really curious because my two public schools were 45 minutes away from each other and they felt like they were in different universes. Why? How is that possible? And also, why am I, as a 13-year-old, the one screaming about it? Why are all of the adults around me acting like this is totally normal?
Well, and one of the things too, to Steph's point is, and this is also how I came to be aware of y'all, is seeing your videos on Instagram of people speaking up at school board meetings. And can you talk about the importance of getting members, people to speak at school board meetings? Because I've spoken at a few. It's, even for me, who feels relatively comfortable public speaking, it's intimidating. So I'm curious, how you help folks, give public comment.
Yeah, so I was actually really nervous to give my school board public comment. Of course, I had Stephanie here and a host of welcoming faces as I did it, which really helped.
She didn't give you a grimace?
Not quite, no. She actually gave me like a good finger over the throat.
I did thumbs up.
But yeah, it was incredibly nerve-wracking to come into this space. I think one of the things that helped me, and that what Sea Alliance's focuses on, is it is one of the most local school or boards that you can be at. So there's a lot less people there, and a lot more room to really make your voice heard, first off. But also just being able to, before a meeting, meet with Sea Alliance people over Zoom and being able to walk through the agenda items with them and figure out what certain aspects of what we were talking about actually meant beforehand, and be able to walk into there with the confidence about myself that I know what this agenda item is about and I know how it will harm or help students and what I want to say about it. So being able to have a support network like that before you go in, combined with just having it be one of these most accessible entry points, because even in high school, without realizing it, I was at a school board meeting. So there's more connection to it because it's directly tied to your school if you're a student, or economy and stuff like that if you're a bit older. But having a support network to go in there with is really the big difference for me.
I love that.
I think I remember the first time you spoke at our school board meeting, and it was on a federal topic. I think, was it federal budget? It was something you were telling us to have our eyes on for
the funding freeze.
The funding,
summer last year, 2025.
Yes.
I think that's right. And it was, I remember your speech, and it was just so you were so knowledgeable, and we were like, wait, is this kid, is he right? Is that happening? They're like, yeah. So when you have a topic, is it each individual county, do they sort of choose a topic, or are you working together to say, okay, this is what we're going to focus on this week, and everyone go speak to your school board, or this is what we're going to focus on? Or do you do your own thing?
So we're pretty focused on our own local counties as we're organizing in the school boards. because we can have our biggest impact in our own local counties. But that's not to say that there isn't like support networks across the entirety of Florida. Like we're still meeting a couple of times a week and having like statewide strategy sessions. But at the same time, we're having those statewide strategy sessions. Also on Thursday, we have our county-specific strategy sessions where people are able to come together after a school board meeting or beforehand and read through the items or watch through the video and see what's important. But it is really locally focused.
I think Colson just said it really well. It's locally focused and there's that national balance. So every single week, Sea Alliance organizers and fellows have a movement-wide touch point and then a district-specific touch point. So every single week, there's at least one call that they're with the entire movement, comparing, contrasting, working, collaborating, strategizing, and then one call that they're just focused on their district. So when there are things like the Department of Education is being shut down, surprise, we're all speaking about that. And so it's on those movement-wide calls that we're able to say, here's the policy package, here's the public speaking package. And I should say, we have a policy team and a public speaking team. And these are comprised, especially in the multi-generational component, with so many retired educators, lawyers, union organizers who are so skilled and thoughtful, and it takes them 1 hour to analyze the state board agenda that would take me 5. And so they're then able to really quickly package all of these talking points for people like Colson, people like myself, and then our public speaking team can go, okay, also just know that the 5 board members in insert district feel this way. So instead of you coming in all hot and heavy like this, you're going to come in and you're going to joke about this, then you're going to say this, then you're going to follow up with this, and then you're going to email that. And we really think about it as a balanced communication strategy. So it's locally led, locally tailored, but then when there are those movement-wide points, having that natural weekly cadence means that we're never more than 48 hours away from a response point, which is really rewarding for our young people when we see something like okay, great, Governor DeSantis says ICE is going to be welcomed into K through 12 schools, right? The day after that happened, all of our organizers across the state of Florida got on a shared call, and then we were able to all inquire to our districts how they would be specifically responding and implementing. And the way that Orange County Schools was going to respond to this was entirely different from Sarasota County. So the way we organized started off the same together, but then it became more individualized, more customized. And that's a big part of Sea Alliance is every local team, every organizer, every volunteer, and every fellow has an individualized action plan. So we spend a lot of time writing it, a lot of time building out the program, but everyone is tethered to a document with a trajectory.
I can't wait until y'all take over the state. I know you kind of already are, but this is amazing. I'm wondering, as you bring students in who are focused sort of on the school board level, so a lot of time we think about voting and engagement is like top down, but have you noticed that you have brought in people that kind of maybe start at school board, but then their interests, sort of a bottom up?
100%.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what we've seen is that when people get involved at a school board specific level, they gain these skills from organizing there, being in this governmental body that's so small, that's so navigatable. And once they end up graduating or moving on to whatever is next for them, we actually see that they're significantly more likely to vote, participate, organize in all levels of government once they have those skills developed.
It's my favorite data relationship ever. Like the idea that just a young person going to a school board meeting while they're in high school means that they are significantly more likely to become a lifelong voter at every level. Money. Done. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
We're acting like this youth voter turnout problem is impossible to solve, but we're treating our young voters like they're stupid. So we're only pointing them to the big shiny races and being like, look, big race, vote in that big race. Yay! And our young people are going, oh, well, in the state of Florida, we actually haven't had a victory in this way, maybe in 2 decades. Oh, and the last person who won this race won by 400,000 votes. Oh, I actually don't see why something that is already confusing, already boring, and will take time and energy out of my day is something that's worthwhile, right? But then you go to a school board, and Colson says to his fellows, hey, if just one marching band at one high school turned out to vote, this entire school board could be flipped. Suddenly all the high schoolers' face light up, and then when you get the ballot, you're not skipping across all of the statewide races, going to the bottom and bubbling in just school board. No, you're filling out the whole ballot. So that's the magic, is everyone has been preaching and teaching that it is top down, but it really is bottom up, because the data, we just follow the data. It shows us that our young people are educated, they're aware. Think about our phones, right? You'll go onto TikTok being like, I'm so excited to see someone dance, and you leave with information on a genocide. And it's like, oh my God. And our young people are learning about politics and engaging with it in a distributed way more often and earlier than any other generation. So they're aware. And they care. What we're seeing is our young people care. We do focus groups across the state, and Colson, you got to sit in on them. So
wonderful.
So interesting. But what we're seeing is that everyone is aware of what's happening. People can speak to it, and they can speak to it with the right vocabulary. And they understand that the politics isn't separate from their lived experience. That was different a generation ago. Today, people fully understand that groceries and healthcare and driving down the street is politics. The only reason it's consistent that young people are not turning out to vote, not getting involved, is they do not believe that their vote or their involvement will make a difference. And so when you boil it down to school boards and you show them that it makes a difference, like going to a school board meeting, Colson will give a public comment, it'll get reported on by a local paper, it'll get shared on Facebook, and suddenly, boom, you speaking has made an impact within 48 hours. But then our high schoolers see that and they'll post it on Instagram, and then one of the teachers will repost it on Facebook and be like, great job, student. And then the local observer will post a picture of it and be like, local student challenges school board. And suddenly there's motion, suddenly there's a conversation. But if we started at the gubernatorial or the presidential, you're never gonna have that. The Orlando Weekly's not writing about 100 people signing a petition to Washington, D.C. And that's also why public comment is such a good strategy. It is simple. People are acting like politics is complicated, and it is, but responding to it can be simple. It can be simple. Your politicians are in a room once a month. Go to that room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even to Xander's point, like I literally have a newspaper from like a Broward County reporter that I'm going to frame up on my wall. That's like Broward, like I'm still at UCF at the time, but it was on when we went to Tallahassee, we had spoken on an education bill. And my buddy found at like just like a local shop newspaper article that had me and another Broward fellow listed with our comment just there for people to see, talking about the issue. So like the utility of it, like how amazing it is to see it be spread around. It's
I mean, imagine like the problem we're solving is young people feeling like they don't have a voice, and then they're literally in the newspapers, they're covering social media, they're in the conversation. It's so cool to watch.
And even if they're not, I mean, I've witnessed some high schoolers come to our school board meeting, and I'll use the example of dress code. And they came, they had an issue with dress code, and they talked about dress code. And you know what? The dress code policy changed. And maybe the paper didn't cover that particular issue, but that gives you, oh, okay. Like I came and I showed up and I said something, and my goodness, it works. Like what the heck?
It's amazing. And not to gas you up too much, but even friendly, right? Even friendly board members like yourselves doing that thumbs up, giving a smile, following up with an email, asking a question, making it clear that you heard and have seen someone. I do want to gas you up. I want to extend that gratitude, because we hear all the time from our young people. Like I've had so many board meetings like where the young people come out like really upset because the school board member rolled their eyes or went on their phones or looked away, and it is heartbreaking because these are high school students. And so having people like yourself also affirm that you've heard, that you respect what they said, that makes a difference is really rewarding and really amazing. And from the people in Orange County that I have the treat to speak to, and also just like trying to research and follow school board politics across the state, we have a lot of gratitude for how you show up to your role in a really professional and thoughtful way, because it's clear that it's not politically driven, but rather people driven. And I think the more that we can center that in the school board space, the better. So it really is such an advantage to our students to see a friendly face on the dais.
Well, I appreciate all the work that you're doing and all the support. But, it's funny. I have my own story when I first started speaking at school board meetings, and my girls always will bring this up. I was nervous. I still, I've said before, public speaking is not my favorite, but this was even before I ran, and it was during COVID, and I provided a public comment, and it was very emotional, and I was speaking, and there was a school board member who was not paying attention, was like fixing her hair. And to this day, like, it kind of still offends me a little bit, because I felt like they weren't paying attention to me, and they weren't even, I was up there and I was nervous and speaking, and she was like doing something with her hair. And my girls remember it too, because, they were, what?
Sticks with you.
Yeah, 2nd, 4th, and 6th grade or whatever they were, they're paying attention, remembering. So, and I'm not naming names, but, but I'm just saying it's something that everybody remembers.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, it shouldn't be a performance, but there is the human principle of like, okay, if this is the 3 hours a month that I get to see you do your job, you better show up with your A game, because I have to assume that for the 50 hours I'm not, you're showing up in a similar way. And so when our school board members can't even care enough to demonstrate care to our community, it hurts the trust, because people aren't assuming that when the cameras are off and the community is away, that's when they become the really thoughtful, kind, generative, hardworking person. They assume that we're getting the best case reflection on the dais. And in many cases, that's really discouraging. And it, like you said, sticks for a long time. So.
This is so maybe out of pocket, but we just saw the Odyssey maybe a couple hours ago, and they talk a lot about Zeus's law. This is not a spoiler for the Odyssey, a 3,000-year-old text. But Zeus's law: treat others as you want to be treated. And I feel like when you're on the dais, Steph, you should be following Zeus's law, and I feel like that should apply to school board members.
Come on, golden rule.
All right, I'll remember that. Thanks, I appreciate it. No, but I totally agree. And again, I think it's when you have been on the other side, and hopefully y'all will run for office, and you'll be in these positions. But you want to treat others how you wanted to be treated when you were not on the dais. So I'll just leave it there.
Well, Steph, you actually touched on something that I want to ask. And obviously, Sea Alliance has its own 10-year plan, and you are doing already amazing things. But it does make me think, as you talk about what you're working on and how you're organizing people, I'm like, are they going to do candidate training? Are they going to do candidate recruitment? I just want to throw that in your direction, kind of how you think about that, if that's something that interests you.
I can speak to Sea Alliance, the C3, and we do a lot of different work with candidates that's more community facing. So we're running tons of candidate forums, town halls, conversations, meet and greets, questionnaires, grading systems, all of the above. And then I can also state that separate of the work that we do and in the role I'm currently speaking from, there exists a Sea Alliance C4 and then a variety of partner packs. And in that space, I think there's different work that on another day we could have a really exciting conversation about. But we're definitely thinking about how people arrive at the decision to run for their local school board, because it's in many ways considered one of the more accessible forms of government. And we want to make sure that the people that we are greeting and putting in charge of the trajectory of our school districts care about public education and have an ability to speak to and operate within it, and do not instead have a political ambition that means this will be a step on a ladder that is gone within a year. And I think we're definitely thinking about that, because we also have so many incredible young people that, Colson and I will log off a call, go, oh my gosh, they need to be a school board member. They have got to be a school board member. And I think that's something we hear about a lot and is definitely going to be more and more relevant in the coming years, as we have more young people that once they get involved, they see the impact, and then they see that, oh wait, I do know what I'm doing. I do have these skills. They're becoming confident and excited, and it's really encouraging. I can say that we have some people that in the coming years from Sea Alliance staff and Sea Alliance training programs are making that decision, and I'm really excited for them.
Very exciting. Well, this is kind of related on the political spectrum. I think there's been conversations about young people just not being very interested in labeling themselves with a political party necessarily. Is that something that you see? Or how are you seeing young people navigate the political space?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of young people are leaning away from political parties in general. And I think a big part of that comes down to what we were talking about earlier with that top-down style of leadership. A lot of young people aren't actually hearing their voices reflected in a lot of the people running for like major political offices, whether it's on either side. So when we tend to see views that we know just like from an ethical standpoint are like, yeah, this is obviously the right thing to do. And then we see politicians from either aisle focus more on like the bureaucratic layers or like making sure that they're able to appeal to a moderate majority as opposed to like a more left-leaning majority. When you lose that level of representation, yeah, they're not going to want to join a political party.
We're seeing that because young people are also accessing politics and conversation from their phones, it's more distributed and it's more individualized than it was a generation ago. A generation ago, if you wanted to have a political conversation, it was happening at the dinner table, it was led by your parents, and it was informed by a cable set. Now, it is uninformed by a cable set, not moderated by your parents, and sometimes run by someone on YouTube who has no idea what they're talking about. And so we have a very diverse political discourse. And it also means that our young people are thinking about issues as issues and people as people, not as products of a party system. And so they want to pick and choose. They want to say, this is the right candidate for this seat, but you're not the right candidate for this seat just because you have the same label. And I'm excited to see that because I think it means more and more people will be held accountable. But I also understand the greater concern that I hear about a lot and I'm spoken to about a lot about how in a closed primary state, are young people not aligning with the party cuts part of their power away, and how, especially as we're looking at more and more monolithic structures get involved in politics, I think it makes sense that the instinct is, oh, okay, we need to regroup in our corner, in this corner, and in that corner, and I feel that, and I appreciate that. And also, in the same way we're told, well, AI is happening, get on board, and independence is happening, and we have to get on board. 1/3 of the state of Florida is non-party affiliated in a closed primary state. So what we're seeing is more and more appetite, even when it means losing out on some choice making, for independent, self-determined political posture. And it makes sense. That makes sense. And so we need to meet people where they're at and say, okay, great. Like if this is how you feel comfortable entering the political space, what does that mean for your values? What does that mean for your actions? And also, can we maybe open up the primary? So there are questions like that that become more and more important. And that was why, for example, in 2024, we ran the No on One campaign. Obviously, there was already a greater conversation around what was going to happen with that amendment, but our young people were really excited about and got really focused on challenging Amendment 1, which in 2024 would have made school board elections partisan, meaning 1/3 of our voters would be cut out of the opportunity to vote there and would be massively damaging to Sea Alliance's work and to the public education system overall. And within 2 months, that team onboarded and trained 380 Florida-based canvassers to have over 170,000 voter conversations, contact 7 million Floridians, run a Hulu ad filmed and directed by high school students, all on why our school board elections needed to remain nonpartisan. And I think our young people, it's not just that. We did focus groups with John DeLaVolt from Social Sphere, and those were so cool.
They were in Orlando. I was able to go in and actually watch one of them through the glass and see everything.
Fun.
Oh, it's so.
And psychology is one of my majors, so I was like really locked in on it.
Yeah.
And in those, we learn that it's institution as a concept, not as a political idea. So people are less likely to affiliate with any institution, whether that be a brand, right? So the era of people wanting a massive Nike swoop on their chest is declining. And the era of people aligning with even things like the church. People of faith spoke about it more as an individual practice than as an institutional benefit. And we're seeing it with McDonald's. We're seeing it with Starbucks. We're seeing it across the board with Target. We're seeing institutions are less attractive to our young people. And I think that's also interesting for Sea Alliance as we're building ourselves and building the movement. Okay, what does that mean for how we present and how we create offerings and how we do standardize things? Because I think there is an element to growth and to scaling that requires infrastructure. But how does that compare to what people are perceiving as institution? And how do we create that grassroots nitty gritty, you can still be yourself, sink your shoulders feeling in our spaces and in our work?
I mean, that's the balance right there, right? How do you grow while still making it not seem like it's a institution? I mean, but whatever you're doing, I feel like you're doing it right. So, man, just so grateful for both of you and for the work that you're doing.
Part of it's being able to trust people like Colson. Like the Orange County movement doesn't look like any other of the district movements. Like if you tried to create a parallel between what's happening in Orange County and Sarasota and Broward, it would look like there are 3 different organizations running. And even down to our Instagrams, they all have different names, and they all have different logos. And we're less concerned with putting a big Sea Alliance stamp on all the work and saying, boom, that's ours. We're more concerned with, okay, how does it feel like yours? Because if I'm in Orange County and I have 3 hours a week, I am not giving my energy to a movement that feels like it's more focused on someplace else. I'm giving it to the Orange County movement run by an Orange County citizen or community member or student who cares deeply about Orange County and wants to get more involved.
That's leadership. Like that's the kind of leadership that we need. It's not worried about your brand or not worried about your name. It's worried about getting the work done. And that's what you've shown that you all do. So
look at you gassing them up.
I mean, I'm
love
just
it.
saying.
I want to recant my
appreciate-
statement. I do want to gas you up. I come off the back of a conference this weekend where I'm like, so a little bit of context. This weekend, my job was content creating for elected officials. And I found myself going, oh my gosh, wait, I need to not be so nice. I can't just hype all these people up. I need to look at their records. I need to say what they're doing. Yeah. So I caught myself in that loop, but to gas you up. You deserve to be gassed up. And I sincerely appreciate the work you do. And I think it's also why I was so looking forward to having this conversation is so often I'm having conversations with people in the political space who I don't feel super thrilled about all the time, or I can't totally trust. And even just experiencing how you approach the work and how you approach other people, I'm so grateful for how board members like you and Heather Felton and Liz Barker and Rebecca Thompson show up to the work, because it makes such a difference for our young people. And there's so many, Luisa Santos, like there's so many incredible school board members who continue to show out in amazing ways. Like at the state board meeting that we were at 2-3 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
We'll call it that. We run a really awesome public comment session online to get people to speak at the state board meeting, which they changed to a conference call, which was ridiculous. So they had an in-person meeting, then they canceled the in-person meeting. Then they canceled the Zoom call and made it a conference call. So everyone is confused. No one knows how to do public comment. You have to like dial it. Colson was the one who figured it out.
I was the first person to do public comment for Sea Alliance in that. And we had entered this phone call, listening, and they just were like, public comment is going to start now. They didn't explain the process for like how you would know it was your turn or whatever. So we were all sitting there like, dude, how do we give public comment? And I had to wait till like on my phone, like I heard like a beep, and then like that's how I knew I was going to go. But I had no explanation. I just had to know I was going to go.
Well,
so thankfully, I was able to go in the Zoom chat and be like, guys, it's going to be a beep.
It was like Paul Revere. He's like, a beep is coming. If you hear the beep, you are about to speak. And it's also like, it's big credit to our high schoolers. We're like, guys, this is going to be weird and stressful. You should not hold an expectation. If you mumble, if you pause, if you say LOL, we just got to roll with it, because this is ridiculous. And it was really awesome. But I bring up that meeting to say, like, there was, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was board member Luisa Santos who spoke at that meeting, and you should have seen our high school faces on the call. They didn't realize there was an option. Like, oh my God, a school board member. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I think just watching real leadership from the dais is inspiring for our young people, because so often our board members will say, oh, there's nothing we can do about this. There's nothing we can do here. And I'm excited about board members like yourself who decide, okay, maybe I can't entirely solve the problem because that's not in my jurisdiction, but I can send an email out to parents that explain it clearly. I can be willing to have a public conversation so people can get their anxieties addressed. I can organize a back to school drive, and that make families' lives easier at a time where the state government is making it harder. And I think there are choices like that people act like can't be made, but certainly can.
Steph, I'm curious, like, how does that make you feel? Because, no, I'm serious. Let me explain why. Because, like, obviously, there could not be a bigger booster in this room. Sorry. But other than me. And I have full faith in you, but like having integrity doesn't always mean you're going to make the popular decision. I know that's not what you're saying, Xander, but it, like, this feeling of like, oh, I could disappoint you. I mean, that's got to be tough. Like when people rightfully, I think, do believe in you, but like you're not going to go undefeated. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're going to have to make decisions that are not going to be popular. I don't know. I'm curious how you think about that.
I mean, I think just one of the things that Xander said, which is to explain your decision-making process, I think is part of it. But also you named some of my very favorite school board members across the state. And I mean, many of us are working together because the same way that you are building your youth alliance, we are also realizing that there's power in working together across county lines as well. And so that's something that, I hope that we can all bring too, is just, bringing the thoughts together, bringing the strategy together, bringing the policy thinking together, and, trying to make decisions. But it is, that there is a part of me that's like, okay, I want to do the right things. And to your point, it's, someone will always be disappointed. And so I think just trying to stay honestly just true to your values is really all you can do, and to feel good about the decisions you're making. And they're not always going to be popular, but they're always going to be what you said you were going to do. Or if not, like you explained why you changed your mind, which can happen too sometimes. So, but I appreciate, I don't know. I don't like all the attention, so this is terrible. But
you ran for office.
Not to turn it into more of a horn toot, but I think that's also part of it. Is we have this conversation often. Is it, in many ways, there's a really interesting paradigm for becoming an elected official in which, in some cases, it requires someone going, yeah, I actually do know best. And for the 400,000 people that live around me, I could make the best choices. And I think for some people, that's the entry point to becoming an elected official. Not most people, but some. And then I think there's folks like you who are maybe not in love with the attention, who maybe even get uncomfortable when all of it's placed on you, but who go, okay, this is a problem. It demands a solution. Someone has to administer the solution. I have the skills to administer the solution. I'm willing to try. If people want what I am going to offer, then I'll offer it. But I'm not going to change my offering based on what they want. And that simple decision, I think, is so cool. Because also then you don't feel anxious to have the full solutions. Like if you're basing your choices based on what people want and someone says, we don't want our school to close and you don't have the power to keep it open, you're going to go, I can't do anything. I'm so sorry. This isn't my problem. Go to Tallahassee. But if you're dedicated to doing right by your constituents and you're like, okay, well, obviously this is horrible. Let's have a town hall to talk about why it's closing. Let's talk about what your options are. Let's figure out a transition plan. And then also, if there is a path to keep it open, I'll tell you honestly what it is and we can collaborate. Like, it's the same problem. One of those realities makes families' lives entirely different and entirely better.
Okay, as we're getting closer to the end, one of the things you mentioned, Xander, is you were doing influencer work. Is that a fair way to put it?
They put it on my badge, and it was every member of my team was like laughing, and Colson will laugh because I am technologically not like I don't love social media. I like it as a tool, and I think Sea Alliance is fantastic at it, and I feel comfortable with it, and I feel like there's a good instinct for it, right? But when I first went viral, it didn't happen like intentionally. And
can you tell that story?
Yeah. So I gave a graduation speech in 2022 about my curly hair as a metaphor for being gay in response to the fact that my graduation speech was censored, and this was a huge moment in that year because for the 3 months prior, my entire life was the Say Gay organizing and the Don't Say Gay lawsuit. So for the final quarter of high school, I missed over 70% of classes. Like I don't even fully think I qualified to graduate, but the school district was like, get him out of here. We're signing the diploma, get him out of the district. And so I was really gone. I was in New York, DC. I was doing my first national interviews from my kitchen while my mom was watching. And I was just doing my best to get everything together. And I hadn't posted on social media about the process, I think more than once, and it was a collaboration post requested by a local organization. So I wasn't active on social media, and nothing that I was doing was for social media. I give the graduation speech because, actually, let me back it up. I've lived this, but my principal, who I have a lot of love and respect for, still to this day, called me into his office and let me know that my graduation speech that I was to deliver as class president could not reference the Don't Say Gay lawsuit that I was the lead plaintiff in, or my organizing that had become really volatile in community. For example, the week prior, Bridget Ziegler, my school board member, had authored a hate article about me in the Federalist, and things like that, and Proud Boys posting about me, and reporters showed up to campus, and Rolling Stones folks called my teachers, and things like that happened in a really disruptive way that made my presence on campus really problematic and distracting and energizing, and also just bad for a public school. They canceled our senior prank because I was the one who came up with the idea for it as class president. There was lots of moments, but they wanted to basically quiet the noise that I was creating. And part of that noise was going to be my graduation speech. As class president, I was to deliver a graduation speech for the year that I was class president. I was very lucky to be the first student body president all 4 years at Pineview, which meant that it was just one big speech from me. And I was already aware that people don't want to hear me speak for 30 minutes. I'm going to do a quick, tight 5-minute, we got this, we're awesome, let's go. And then my principal called me in and told me that I could not discuss being gay, the lawsuit, all these things. And I realized so immediately, as I was asking high schoolers across the state to be brave, to stand up, to speak out, that I wasn't about to censor myself in this graduation speech. And suddenly it needed to have this element because, pardon me, it was always going to have an element of the organizing in it. Like, he was right. It was going to reference that. But there was also a part of me that recognized that our entire high school journey couldn't be recaptured by a month of problem. We had spent 4 years together studying, accomplishing, doing amazing things. We had run nonprofit drives as a high school class. We had done amazing dances. We had run a campaign, actually, to try to get Pipple to come to our campus. And Pipple's management responded because a bunch of our videos went viral. Like, we were a community organizing student body, and we had fun. And I wanted that to be reflected in the speech while addressing what was happening. And I realized that if I had given my original speech, which did address the organizing and did address the lawsuit as it was written, they were going to cut my mic. And I say that because they said they were going to cut my mic. The school district released a statement, my principal affirmed it, and they were going to shut down the ceremony for all of the hundreds of students and my friends who had earned their celebration. And I was not comfortable with that, right? Like, I was not going to forfeit everyone's celebration that they had earned simply because I was being put in this really horrible position by a bunch of bullies. And so they didn't give me much time. I had 48 hours to write the speech, and I was running around in circles trying to think about what I could do. And I remember just thinking of the metaphor, and as soon as I thought of it, I was like, that's right. That's what I'm going to write about. That's the right thing to do. And so I create this speech about my curly hair, about how it's hard to have curly hair in Florida's humid climate, and how there are so many high school students who have curly hair and need safe public schools like Pineview that allowed me to be who I was and will allow others to be who they are. But legislation like this destroys those spaces and destroys what make our public schools so strong. And so here's how we need to respond. And I'll say this, my vice principal, Lana Marcotte, big shout out. She was getting so much crap for this because a lot of people in community and a lot of celebrities were also now attacking my principals and teachers, and they were very much operating in a way that makes sense to me, even if I don't respect it and even if I don't appreciate it. I don't think that my principal and vice principal originated the Don't Say Gay law. I don't think that they wanted this to happen. I think that they were being bullied by a school district that was being bullied by a governor in a state, and it was a really toxic position. And I think my principal looked at the totality of the student body and the totality of his staff and saw one student making a mess and thought, I can solve this.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, right? Like I don't think you're an evil person, but I also have to hold you accountable, right? Like if any of us capitulate, if at any level we start allowing this fascism, this censorship to trickle in while we are making ourselves responsible for student bodies, while we're making ourselves responsible for faculties, right? Like if you're a principal, you have made yourself the steward of that campus, I am going to hold you responsible for that choice making. So it's a balance, right? But she responded to that speech with approved, we love you and your curly hair. And so I knew when that happened that if I delivered the speech, it wouldn't get cut. And so graduation day was insane. They tripled security for the event. There was like a rumor going around that there was going to be trigger warning, violence, guns, but a shooter at graduation. And so instead of saying, no, we haven't had a confirmed threat, someone released a statement saying that my principal would wear a bulletproof vest. And then that never got cleared up. And instead, people got calls home from the principal saying, still come to graduation, it will be safe. But of course, getting a call home telling you the graduation is safe doesn't make graduation feel safe.
What?
And so extended families were canceling, and students that were a part of Sea Alliance were like, dude, please just don't do it here. I love you so much. Like we could do it afterwards, but my parents are not letting me come. This is gonna be horrible. And so I released a statement on social media prior where I'm like, look, just trust me. Like it's not, just trust me, bro. And I delivered the speech and it goes really well. But because it was a metaphor that I wrote in like a day, and because it was an inside joke with me and my friends and it was specific to my campus, and I was like, this is gonna just be for us. Like you guys are gonna get it, and then we're going to move on. I didn't think about the impact that would happen afterwards, because for me, mentally, I'm pacing through the graduation speech. I just want it to be over. I'm excited for it to be done, but then my high school experience is done and I'm moving on with my life. That is not what happened. The next morning, I was on Good Morning America for 2 separate segments.
Oh my God.
And then the next week, they put me on The View, and then it was over. And then it was over. And it took me 3 years to post the graduation speech to my social media. So to your point about the influencer thing, that was never on my mind, and it was always, it feels bratty because I'm really grateful for all the support.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't had those viral moments, we wouldn't have an organization, and that is my dream. So I am grateful. But it felt like it happened without my permission. Like I had an Instagram account, and it was just me and my friends posting like pool parties, being like, LOL, hags, like have a great summer, like LOL, like you know what I mean? It was like a personal Instagram. I had like 800 followers, and then unfortunately, in the week of going viral, all of my friends and family members had horrible messages sent to them. We had family and friend doxxed, and then police had to go to their houses. And so I felt sick and responsible for all of that. And I didn't know how to do social media. So instead of archiving things, I just deleted everything I had posted for the last 5 years. And I think in that moment, it also felt like my personal story on social media had been taken from me.
Yeah.
And my personal fun on social media had been taken from me. And it was just hard. My brother is still in high school, and I love him so much. Super opposite to how I present. He is a wonderful, fantastic basketball player. He has a big lion tattooed on his chest. He's awesome, and I love him. And he's exactly what you would expect of someone who maybe wouldn't support me, not to put it in that stereotype framework, but he was friends with a lot of guys who would give him a really hard time about what was happening. And my parents are doctors; they're both dentist people, and so all of their patients would be like, "So you're okay with your son like destroying our community?" And it was really hard for everyone.
Yeah.
And so I felt responsible because I had made this choice for myself, and I was comfortable with whatever it was going to do to me, but I wasn't on board with what was happening to all the people that I loved and that I was around. And so really quickly, social media stopped being fun and stopped being entertaining and stopped being something I enjoyed. And it really quickly became a tool. And I think I posted probably once or twice a year. And it was when we either needed to fundraise or I needed to like promote an event. And it wasn't really until this past year that I think I've settled into so much of the organizing work and I've learned so much of the benefit of the social media that I'm willing to turn my attention back to content creation, at least minimally. I never want that to be the majority of what I'm doing. I never even want it to be half. But the data came back last year, and the majority of people who joined Sea Alliance, and we're onboarding between 5 to 10 volunteers a week.
Wow.
5 to 10 a week, which is amazing.
That's wild.
That is amazing.
The momentum's insane.
Yeah.
But the majority of those people, they're not coming from paid ads. They're not coming from paid display. They're coming from organic social media content. The majority of people that work with Sea Alliance found us from an Instagram or Facebook post that was not paid. And so I see that data as an executive director who wants my organization to grow, and I go, oh my God.
I have to keep doing
Darn
it.
it.
Oh my God, I have to post on TikTok. I have to listen to my high schoolers. But then also that becomes an exercise of fun too, and starting to open that back up. So my challenge to myself this year is to go back on social media and try to enjoy myself while communicating our message. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
I haven't really tried. This weekend was the first time.
Yeah.
Like I really fight the label of influencer or content creator because I don't create content and I don't do social media influencing. But I think when people know me from my social media stuff, of course that's the language they have for it. So
Yeah.
it was an interesting weekend to content create, and this is my monologue on it. But yeah,
Well, there's a
social
couple,
media.
like I have a couple just reactions. Like one, like you talking about, your first story of reality. To use a word I think is importantly much more in the culture now is like, it was like a non-consensual event, right? Like
Yeah.
you did not consent to having all that attention on you and all the negative attention to the people around you, and you couldn't control it. And I have to imagine that feels very like,
I mean, of course, like you're delivering a speech publicly. You should be
Right.
ready for anything. But I'm thinking this is a high school graduation speech in Osprey, Florida, right? Like I'm thinking at max, there's going to be a Facebook post from my mom that does numbers in her group chat. Like I'm like, this is not going to be
Right.
a problem. Because also, at the time, there were a lot of huge gay celebrities, queer and trans celebrities that I love, and I have a lot of respect for. They were like, if you bring a confetti cannon, I'll post it on Instagram. Just know, like, we're all counting on you to say gay. And things like that really sucked. Things like that really sucks because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I think I'm doing the right thing, but this person that I've watched on TV for 5 years is telling me I'm not, and I'm stressed. And so I was really, by the time the speech came around, I was like, because also at the same time, more important context, we were running the Say Gay sticker campaign and the Advocate Graduate campaign, and we were actively advocating with 45,000 high school students. So we had a ton of community centers partner with us, and we had students pick up Say Gay stickers, and they could just slip them in their graduation sleeves, and then right as they were crossing stage, boom, Say Gay sticker across the chest. And so we had thousands of high school graduations that had Say Gay stickers on them. And for my graduation, behind me, Tom Edwards and, oh God, I'm going to forget the names, which I shouldn't because I love them. I believe it's Goodwin and Brown. My incredible board members at the time showed up with Say Gay stickers on their chest as well. So it was like there was so much around me that was organizing focused, and I was going to spend the whole summer just building with the team to kind of put Sea Alliance in firm hands before I left for college. Like that was the plan. So I was really moved on from this whole graduation debacle before it became the debacle that it was, because then my whole summer just became about that speech. In 2022, we were the most awarded youth-led organization in the country.
Wow.
And that speech, I think, we won the Matthew Shepard Award, and I met his parents, and that was such a huge and emotional moment. And then we won like the 17 Voice of the Year Award, and I was like met with the 17 magazine like chief editor, and she like offered us an opinion segment. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And I think that somewhere I also learned, I was like, holy God, we have been working hard for the last 3 years doing real, critical, tangible, impactful work, and nobody cared. And I gave one speech that I wrote in an afternoon that lasted 7 minutes, and it has now supplied every opportunity and every resource that I've been begging for 3 years. I have got to talk to my phone more. Jesus.
I know. Well, and the other thing I was going to say, I work at a digital ads and communications firm, and like one of the biggest tools we tell organizations to deploy is a quote unquote influencer strategy. Like talking about how people get involved or make donations or whatever is like people they trust on social media or things they come upon organically. And it can be a really difficult thing. So I have to imagine it's quite a blessing to have that platform and a little bit of a curse to have that on your shoulder. Not that you're complaining, but it's a thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think part of like something that probably contributes into like Xander's mindset is like social media organizing, like posting on the internet, like has not really been seen as a very stable form of organizing. Like it's been seen as a very like youth are just posting on social media, and as a result of like all this content that we have available to us, when we see social media posts like talking about organizing and stuff, a lot of the time they don't lead to any concrete action. So I'm just seeing something horrible, great, my next post is like a cat in front of me. But I think like something, because I was gotten into Sea Alliance through social media, like myself, like when I saw the posts come out, like most, if not every social media post we have is like linked to a tangible local action that you can participate in. So it's not just like we're posting on social media to like get these clicks and these numbers and be able to show it while not doing anything, but it's like a real genuine outreach strategy that links into greater movement work. Important distinction he needs to make for himself to post.
Well, I appreciate you. We have the best digital team at Sea Alliance, and you're right. Every single post, and this is a rule for our social media account, has a call to action. So there's not a single reel, graphic, story, social media post from Sea Alliance that doesn't have a call to action, period. And I think that helps people anchor to the purpose of our work and understand why we create content. And for myself, it's the same, but I'm learning and we're building that I also have to post consistently.
Such a drag.
I have to have hooks, and I have to do it. So we're coming into that. And I think what I'm grateful for is that I am not going to do that alone. This work has introduced me to so many brilliant people, like our digital coordinator and our incredible digital team, and then also to content creators across the country who are like, look, I'm dying to get more involved in something real. So even we went to do an Oxford debate about whether or not activism was performative earlier this year. And we were able to have one of my favorite content creators named Jory come from Los Angeles. She has like 5 million Instagram followers or 5 million social media followers across all of the platforms. She's huge. She's amazing. And she came with us. And the whole time, instead of me worrying about like, oh crap, I need to take a selfie of me doing my job. I got to just do my job, and this wonderful woman next to me is taking the selfie. And so there are also partner moments like that and being thoughtful about the approach that I think is going to work. But I think just quite frankly, we're too busy. We have too much to do every day to focus on social media. And so for better or for worse, what's going to happen is the content's going to be very organic. It's going to be very raw. I'm not going to have time to refilm or add lots of edits. I'm going to talk to my phone, and then I'm going to send it to a lawyer and make sure what I've said is compliant. And then I'm going to hit post.
I love it.
I feel like people appreciate that. Well, as we just sort of end this, just want to give you an opportunity. What can people do to support you?
Well, they can go check out our social medias at CR Power. We're on Instagram, and Facebook.
We're, to your point, come on, influencer strategy. By the time this comes out, you can go to TikTok.
Yeah, but we're on social media, crpower.org. You could see a whole bunch of actions that we have coming on. One really simple thing you could do, same thing I did, join a Zoom with Xander call. We have those every Wednesday from 6 to 8. And that's one of the big ways to be able to get locally involved and kind of break out into different actions. More specific to Orange County, like UCF students, we also have a registered student organization on UCF campus where we're beginning to connect college organizing into the high school infrastructure. And, as people who have just come out of the high school system where we're gaining these skills from college, and like education students are able to come in, or like political science students are able to come in and be able to like act as like mentorship, but also like collaboration with the high school students, and just really create that connection is something we're building up in Orange County. So looking out for the UCF RSO too.
My general answer to anyone listening would be go to crpower.org, so SEEOUR power.org, and fill out the Join Us form. This is not a general Join Us form. Every single person who fills it out will have the opportunity to have a 15-minute one-on-one call with one of our incredible onboarding coordinators.
That's amazing.
And they'll help figure out how much time you have, where you're based, if you want to show up in remote or in person, if you already have the skills, if you want to build the skills, what you're interested in, if you want to be in front of a camera, behind a camera, whatever. And then we'll build you an individualized action plan to either volunteer or work with Sea Alliance. And so I work with a team of students, shout out Aries, Elise, and Lola,
The goats.
they're from Maine, Colorado, and New Jersey. They work 20 hours a week each, entirely focused on their sister district based in Florida. So they are developing the political skills across even state lines, and they're building with these incredible students. Just from the fact that they found us on a national video, I'm like, dude, we're Florida based, but if your district's fine, do you want to tap in over here? And that's something that we're thoughtful about. If you have time for us, we will not waste it. We will think of the most productive thing for you to do, and we will make sure that that is what you are doing. We will listen to you and make sure that your skills, your interests, your priorities are reflected in your work, but we will not set you up to do something just to do something. That is my promise. That is my commitment. If it takes training, we'll train you. If it takes resources, we'll resource you, but we will set you up to do something that is beneficial wherever you live. And our youngest organizer is 12. Our oldest is 93. So we have organizers in Washington, Florida. Truly, if you are interested, if anything on this podcast resonated, I would love to talk with you. Colson would love to talk with you.
Absolutely.
So please sign up. We'd love to hear from you. But the website Join Us form is meant to be a universal portal for anyone, anywhere. So fill that out. Come check us out. Even if you fill it out, have the one-on-one, and are like, nah, they suck. At least you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for caring about public education. Thank you for your involvement. Thank you for teaching me. I'm sure, did you learn some things today?
Oh my God, I learned so many things.
And just thank you for investing in people, because that's really what this is all about. Like, when people feel invested in and they feel like they can make a difference, like that's how we make the change. So thank you. Cannot appreciate you more.
Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for what you do day to day. And thank you, Colson, for making this happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I always talk about how spoiled I am to be the Orange County organizing coordinator, because how awesome some of our officials are. I'm super grateful to have the opportunity, and I appreciate it.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.